All right, welcome back. And once you understand how the scaffold works, let's actually dive into the widgets one by one. All right, so there are tons of widgets you can do in Flutter, but we're only going to focus on some of the most important ones and show you how you can find a reference and examples so that you can actually develop whatever widget you want. Right, so let me come back to this app right now, and I'm going to clear these things out, and I will delete this navigation bar at the bottom. I will also reset the background color so that's easier for us to see. All right, so let's come back to this original screen, right? So widgets, all right, so for now, I'm not gonna touch other things. We will talk about the layout shortly, but for now, you can see that all the widgets are sit here in the middle. Okay, it's under this thing called the column, and it's a part of attribute called children, right? So that basically means I have a column of widgets, and it's a list of widgets right here, and there's 3 texts. And then that column is also contained by something called a center, and we'll talk about what is center, what is column later on. All right, so let's look at the widgets. So text, text, and then text, right? Pretty straightforward. You already saw that how it works. Basically, you change the name, app name, or we'll change the my app name, and then you can rerun this app, and then this one will update it, right? And then this one's slightly different. All right, so this one actually use a $sign here with a variable name and to show the content. So that's something also new in Flutter. So basically in Flutter, if you want to show some of the content, and then you could actually use a $sign as a reference if this part here is a variable, right? So there are 2 ways to do it, right? So for example, you could actually just do a counter variable, because let me remind you that here the counter is an integer, right? So you could actually say that, you know, I want to just do a counter. But then if you do this, as you can see, it shows something is wrong, right? The reason is very simple, because the text need to have a string, and then you are giving a integer. Not like Java, where Java can handle the auto type casting for you, and then Flutter in Dart, you have to explicitly convert the type. So if you want to convert integer into string, you can do dot to string, and that's going to work as well, right? So if you refresh, and then this one is going to work just as normal, right? Two ways. Or if you want to say, you know, this is too much to write, I will just use a reference. So Flutter gave you this approach that if you put this string here, okay, if you put a $sign, and then you put your variable right here, it's going to convert that into the string for you automatically. And then if you refresh this one, it works the same. And then the advantage of doing this one is you can easily compose some of the strings. So for example, I can say, okay, current click colon, and I can do this. It will automatically format this together, right? So if I do this one here, you can see it will just be like this. All right, so the $sign with the counter is very commonly used. Another good usage about this one is, so after $sign, you can actually put the expression. So for example, I want to counter times 2, right? So what you want to do is you can do a curly bracket and another bracket, and then you want to say times 2. So with that, the number will be doubled, right? So every time we click on that, it will be doubled. But you can see the inside the bracket, it is just a mass expression. All right, so we get a result first, and then convert that into string and show it up. All right, so that's how it works. Okay, so that's the basic use of a text. Now the text, as you can see, this one here, the text is bigger, right? The reason it's bigger is because obviously you got a style here, right? So let's talk a little bit about the style. So for that, let's actually find out the reference for the text, right? So go back to your browser, and then let's go to Flutter text. And then very easily, you should be able to find a lot of documentation about this one. And whatever link you find, let's just look for the things relevant. This one is about a text. So the best documentation about Flutter is this type of pages, where you can see both the example and the code is very concise. And that's a very good and easy way for you to try and learn things. Like here, this one basically shows how do you do this one called hello name, how are you? And then there's a text line, overflow, and style, all of this, right? So then you can easily see some of the basic usage you can do with the text, right? So let's take a look at this one here, and it shows you the text. Basically use there the style. It looks like the style, you can do a text style, and then you can do a font weight and something called a bold to make it as a bold, right? So that's how you can decorate the text, right? So let me see if we can find more documentation about text. If you click on this one here, and or maybe let's see this one. This is already a text widget. All right, so let's actually see the text styles and then where you can do the styles. Yeah, the default styles here, and let's see if there are more information about styles, especially the examples right here. You can find all these attributes. All right, so let's just try this one by one. And it looks like if you want to do the style, it's under this thing called style, right? So let's try this. So we already did this one here. Let's actually use this one to do something else, like this one here for the text. Or let me bring the text back. Right now, it's the default font size very small, and I'm gonna do a style colon. All right, and then come back to this page to say you need something called a text style, right? So text style. As you can see, whenever you see things pop up, definitely use the auto completion. Don't type yourself, because when you do the auto completion, it will also help you to import the class for you. So it's very convenient. All right. And once you click on this, as you can see, there are so many different styles you can put. If you read this one here, you can do a background color, font size, font weight, font style, so many different attributes. So you should be able to find all of this from the documentation, right? So anyway, so once you have here, and I can, because I want to configure a lot of things, so I would just break a line, I would type some of the attributes. So for example, I want to do the size. I think it's called font size, right? Font size, I want to do maybe 20. All right, so that's kind of the unit they use, and you can play around with the number to see how big or small it is. Once I rerun the app, all right, 20 looks like it's bigger, and I want to do more. I want to do 40. Try this again, and this is a 40 size, right? So this is how you usually switch the font size. Some other things, I think there is a font style. Font style probably allows you to do some of this bold or Italian. Let's try this one. So this one here, oh, actually it's actually the font weight, but then let's actually see what you can do with the style, right? So style is let's try to use the all right, let's try this font style italic, right? So let's try this one here and then type it, and I refresh the code, and this one become italic, right? So the font style allows you to do this kind of thing. Let's see what other style you can do. Let's click on this one. You're gonna normal and italic. Looks like the only two of this. Okay, so that's another one you can do. And then we also saw the font weight. That's actually how you do bold, right? So if you do font weight dot bold, again, all of this should be done with auto completion. You shouldn't actually type everything by yourself, and it's very self-explaining, and it's really easy to use. Okay, refresh, and then this one go to bold, right? And obviously you can do color. Let's see how to do a color. Let's try the color attributes, and then colors, we're gonna do a red. All right, refresh, and then it become a red. And I think you can also do the background color, and let's try some kind of green color. Refresh. All right, that become a green color, right? So a tons of attributes you can do, and then you can definitely find out the one you want to use, right? So that's how you specify the style. So the style is an attribute, and then you put a class called text style, and then from there you can specify any kind of things you want, right? So sometimes you don't know what to do, you just Google it. For example, let's try. So Flutter text change font type. Maybe I want to change the font family, right? Use a custom font, right? So this one is going to tell you a lot of other things that you can import your own font and then change it to a different family, something like that. So a lot of this you can play around with it, and then this shows you how you can do the text style, right? So all you want to know, Flutter change the text into bold, right? Something like this, and then a lot of the time you can probably find out the answer easily. Like right here, I see, and this one, yeah, does show you the bold, right? So the first link, or you want to change the size. All right, many cases I think the Stack Overflow will give you the answer. So some of those, as you can see, they tell you the font size right here, right? So all of these things, just Google it, and then you can actually find out the answer pretty easily. So basically, always go to the Flutter official documentation to look for examples, and then Google it to see other code examples. That's how we learn all this UI stuff. Okay, so that's how the text work. Okay, I just want to show one example. Now the other one here, they use something called a theme. Okay, you basically can define a bunch of themes by yourself. All right, so there's some default theme here. If you click on this one here, as you can see, they already define something called a headline 1 2 3 4, just like HTML. So they have a specific decorations and size configured there. You can use this one, or you want to have more control, just do your own style. All right, so for the short term, I think we're going to stick to this approach because it's more clear and you have the full control. You know what to do for each attributes. All right, so that's all I want to share about the text. All right, so let's talk other widgets. Another very commonly used widget is a button. All right, so let's actually go to find how to do a button. So Flutter button, and then we Google it and then find some of the link, right? So this one here shows you all of this. Actually, let's find out where is the button. Oh, right here. You can actually see there are quite a lot of different buttons, and there is a button bar, and this is basically arrangement of multiple buttons. There is a drop-down button, just like a menu. This is the flat button, and this looks like an iPhone style, right? And then you also got floating action button. We saw that before. Icon button, very useful. Outline button, basically just a little border here, and then also the pop-up menu button and the raise button. This is also very commonly used button, right? So these are just different buttons you can use. Let's try this. Let's try the flat button first, right? So flat button is very simple. It looks like just a very plain text here, and then you can click on. And then here's an example, very easy to use, right? So let's try this flat button, and then you got the two attributes. This one is unpressed, same thing as before. This one is called child, and then you specify a text. All right, so let's do this. Flat button. All right, so I'm gonna add this one after this. All right, make sure you have a comma right here, okay, because this is a list. All right, we're gonna do the button. This time the button is called flat button. All right, parentheses, and then break the line because you're gonna fill in a lot of different attributes. And then first of all, you need the unpressed because that's the action. What do you want to do when you press the button? Now, this should be either a function or you can put a block of code. And then for the block of code, you just do a parenthesis and then brackets, just a simplified version for the function. And then you can put your code here. Okay, we'll talk about that later. And then that's one attribute. And another attribute, very important, is something called a child. So basically this button contains a child. All right, the child is simply a text. We already talked about the text. All right. To do a text, and then you just specify the name. So for example, I'm gonna click on something called confirm. Okay, that's the name of the button. All right, so with that, actually, let's rerun the app. All right, you can see there's a confirm button right here. You can actually click. When you click, you will see the little border, but then when you don't click, it just shows just a text. So this is called a flat button. There's nothing kind of erased, and you can't see the border. In iOS, in iPhone, a lot of buttons are done in this kind of style. It's very popular, very clean and simple, right? So by comparison, if you want to show the actual button shape, I think it's called a raised button. It's actually documented right here. So let's go back here. It is called a raised button right here. Okay, raised button. This is what you can do with raised button, what it looks like. All right, so let's see the sample code. Pretty easy to use. This is the raise button, and then unpress child, pretty much the same, right? So for example, I go back here to do one more, add a comma. All right, so right here I will do a raised button. All right, so just use auto completion, parenthesis, break the line, and then again you need the unpressed because otherwise your button won't work. And then also you need a child, and this is exactly the same. All right, child, you got something called confirm. All right, so with that, let's actually rerun it. Now this is a two button, this is the confirm button, it's called a flag button, this is a raised button, right? So different. Now if you want to configure the decoration, if you want to change the color or style of the text, you can just do the same thing just like we did earlier, right? So you do style and then text style. All right, and then if I just want to change the color, so I will just do a blue. All right, so it's kind of similar to the iOS style and very simple and clean, and you can just change that one, right? And the same thing here, if you want to change the text, you can do the exactly same thing. All right, so that's how we can bring a button here, right? So let's also write some code here. Let's say if I click on this button, I'm gonna also increase this number, right? So I will just do the same thing. So right here on press, because we already know how to increase the counter by calling the method called increment counter. So increment counter right here, as you can see, they do this variable increase by 1, and then they use this set state. So we'll talk about what is set state, right? Let's just simply copy the code. You can copy the code right here, all right? Or you can just call the method. So let me call the method. So increment counter, I'll call this method. So if you ever click on this button, it will do the same thing. So let's refresh my code, rerun it, and I'm gonna call this, click on this button, and it will do exactly the same thing. And then two buttons actually changing the same variable, right? You can also put your code here, right? For example, I'm gonna do this set state, then increase the counter, and also code here and refresh it. This flat button also does the same thing. So now all these buttons are doing exactly the same thing, right? So that's how it works. So that is a button, all right? And so with that, I'm not going to talk too much about other things about the button. There are quite a ton of other things you can do with the button, different style, different decoration. I'm sure you can find out all these examples by Googling. And the next widget I want to talk about is image, right? So image is pretty commonly used. So let's actually Google Flutter image, right? So it's also going to show you quite a lot of useful examples. All right, so right here is a long documentation, but I'm going to just kind of tell you the most important and then commonly used approach about loading images. All right, so let me find a better, maybe a little bit better example. Yeah, this is the best one. Okay, this one here. So image class. Okay, I like the examples with the simple short code like this. And the other example, you saw there's tons of text you have to follow. It's too slow, right? Everyone wants to be more efficient. So this one line of code shows you this image, right? So let's see how it works. Basically, use this class called image. So come back here. All right. So let's see that I want to add maybe a logo here at the above this app name right here, right? So I'm gonna put that in the very top right here. I will do something called image. All right, and make sure you add a comma here to break it. And inside image, you have to provide where the image comes from, right? So as you can see, they actually use a URL to specify it. Just put that into the image and then network image. I think that's a very easy way to use, right? So I'm gonna search for image. I'm gonna do an app logo placeholder and just kind of random app logo, right? So it doesn't matter which one to use. Probably I would just use this one, okay? So it's nothing really content here. I can just use that one as my placeholder, or maybe try something looks maybe a little bit better. One sky. Let's just use this one. Okay, this looks like real logo, right? So I'm gonna right click here. Okay, copy the image address. Make sure this image address is valid. Okay, right here. Okay, you can find this image address. All right, so let's come back to my Android Studio. So I'm gonna do this one here called image colon, and then image network. Actually, it's called a network image. Okay, let's actually see the documentation. I forgot what that is. Yeah, network image, and then parentheses, and then the URL right here. I just put it here. All right, so that's it. So image, and then put the source of the image as a URL, and let's come back and rerun this app. All right, so the logo shows up, right? So it shows up at the top, and then you can basically change this one to anything you want. Really easy. That's how the image works. You can also do the local images. So for example, let's actually show it. So if you want to get a local image, you don't want to download it, right? So or you just want to be safe, something your own. Okay, I'm gonna bring one little image here. Let's do a little nicer icon here. Maybe yeah, this one should work. Yeah, let's actually use this one. So first of all, you have to save this image. Okay, let's save this image to your computer. So I'm gonna call this app logo. Make sure you know the extension file is JPEG or PNG. All of those work. And second step, you have to bring it back to our project folder, right? Because it has to be saved together with your code. Now, in general, we will create a folder to save all the assets. So right here, I'm going to right click here, new and directory. I'll call something called assets, because these are all your assets, the graphical assets for your app. So with that, I can just copy this file. Okay, the easy way is to go back here, just copy this file and then bring it back to my assets folder, just right here and then paste it. It will ask you the name, and I'm going to confirm that. And then this will be added to the assets, right here. This is the image. All right, so in the project folder. Now to use that, before you use that image, you have to also define it in the project YAML file. Okay, I briefly talk about this one here. So I'm going to open this one file here, and we talked about this one in the first week. So as you can see, at the bottom part is where you specify all the assets, and then part of it is here. To add assets to your application, add an assets action like this. All right, let's do this. You need to uncomment this one here, and then you put the location of your assets. Well, this is just an example. Now in our case, we have something called assets slash the name of the app, the file, which is called Apple app logo.jpg. All right, so that's how you can specify it. Whenever you modify the file, okay, it will pop up something called a package guide, just to update and refresh everything. So I will just click on that and then just make sure all of this configuration is being picked up. Now I come back to my application, right? So if I don't want to use this image URL from network, I think I can do something else. I think it's still called image, and this one is maybe called asset image. Let's try this, okay, if I remember correctly. And then we can say the same thing, asset slash app logo.jpg. All right, so let's try this, if that works, run it. All right, so it works. All right, so that's how you can load a local image to your project. So either way works. This is just very convenient. And then this one here, basically is more efficient, but then you have to do all the work to specify, download the image, and then specify in a YAML file, and eventually put it into your specification. But for the image itself, that's how it works. Okay, pretty straightforward. All right, so that's the third widget I want to introduce here. Let me maybe talk one more. Okay, so the last one we also want to show is something called a text field. So this is how you actually get input from user, right? So just like input boxes. So let's try this one here called Flutter text field. All right, so click on this one here. This is where you can get input, right? So as you can see, this one shows you a little password, kind of a dialog right here. And then here some more code on how to use that. All right, let's just try this one here, okay, then see how it works. So this one is the text field, and there's some attribute. One is called obscure text, decoration, border, and all of this, right? So let's actually maybe just copy this part of the code here and then bring it to the screen, right? So I'm gonna add something here. You know, I'm gonna switch back to the image to the network because that takes too much space. So we'll talk about the size later on, how to control the size. All right, so this is the app right now, and then I am going to bring this text input box maybe down here, just like a login window. I'm gonna copy and paste this one here called a text field. All right, so let's actually try to run it, see how it works. So if I run this app, and it shows a little box for you to type the password. And if you click on this box here, and then it bring you the little keyboard, and then you can type. As you can see, everything has been hidden, and because this is a password. All right, so how does it work? Very easy. The reason the text is hidden is because we specified this attribute called obscure text. Make it to be true, and then you can see it. If I change it to be false, right, refresh it again, and you can see the things are not hidden, right? So this is one thing. And then also you can decorate this text field, and then you can use this kind of border, outline input border to do it. And then you also have a label here shows up at the top, right? So you can change this one into username, all right? And then rerun this app, and this one go to the username, all right? So there are a bunch of things you can actually decorate with this. So this is the one complete example on how this input text field works. Sometimes you can just do something really simple. I guess you can just get rid of some of the internal stuff. All right, so if I just do this one here, All right, as you can see, you can still have these boxes. Oh, sorry. You can still have these boxes, and then it just no decoration. It's a very plain text right here, right? I guess you can do some kind of hint. All right, just a kind of a message. So let's actually Google it if there are better way to do it. So Flutter text field and hint. All right, so with a hint text, something like this. All right, so they give you a lot of examples here. It looks like you still need to do the decoration and then the hint text and just shows here, right? So that's a kind of the same thing as we did earlier. And then again, you need to do the hint text right here. That's basically what we did earlier. Okay, I saw there was a simpler way to do it, but it looks like that's the only way. So you want to do the decoration, input decorator, and then the attribute called text, label text. All right, so that's it. So that's how you do the text field, and then you can basically just do both. I do a username, I do another one called a password, and then the password, this one should be like true. All right, so if I rerun this one here, all right, so now we got a username and a password. Okay, this one you can see the text, this one you cannot see the text. All right, so sometimes you will see this like yellow black bar here. It doesn't look right? So the reason this one shows up because we are running out of space. Now you see this screen here right now is very busy, right? So we have a lot of stuff going on. But once you click on this one, because the device had to bring the soft keyboard, that's going to stack everything up, and then some of the things you can't see anymore. As you can see here, there are two buttons, right, being hidden. That's why it kind of gives you a warning that your layout kind of messed up. You can't see some of these things anymore, and you gotta think about a way to fix it. So we'll talk more about how to fix that with the layout control. But whenever you see this, just so you know that this is something that you have to fix and improve. All right. So anyway, to summarize, we kind of briefly talk about different kind of widget, text, some of the attributes. We showed you two different buttons, Fab button and Erase button. We showed you how to handle the images, all right, from network and the local assets. And finally, we briefly talk about the text field where you get input, right? So these are some of the very commonly used widgets, but there are tons of other widgets you can do from Flutter. If you actually go to the documentation, let's find out the UI stuff, widget catalog, right? So there's so many different things and you can find, and then you can basically decide what you need and how that's going to work. There are a lot of iOS style type of widget, and then the input, there are different ones, the form, and then anytime you are looking for different kind of widget and how to use that, just go ahead to search in Google, and there are tons of examples you can use. All right.